Welcome, everyone. This is podcast 1 of Chef and Lambos by Chef David Hill, and I am Chef David Hill. I'm a private chef primarily working in Naples, Florida, but with my business I cover a large area. I go as far south as Miami, as far north as Tampa, and right now there's been a big push for chefs out in Sarasota, Longboat Key, Siesta Key. There's been a lot of work out there for me, and I've been very lucky and grateful to have such work. And right now we're doing our first podcast here from Naples, Florida area, and we have a beautiful scenery here, and I have a wonderful first guest, Paw Mikkelsen. How are you, Chef?
I'm pretty good, Dave. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. If you wouldn't mind, go ahead and tell all the people about your work and where you're from.
Okay, well, I'm a pastry chef in Naples. I have a pretty decent-sized pastry shop. We do a lot of wholesale too, country clubs, caterers, restaurants. Plus, we have a retail shop and do private customers from there too. We've been in business for about 21 years now. Started the business in 2000 by myself, and now we have a staff of like 35 people.
Wow.
So
I had no idea there was that many.
It's been pretty good.
I thought maybe 10 people.
No, we're like 35.
Okay. Well, I just want to say, like, even though we don't talk much or, get together at all, I have a lot of respect for you. And I feel like with what you do there, it's a very unique thing. I've been in your building many times. We do business together all the time. And I got to ask, with what I've seen, it seems as if you grab your staff from all different areas. I'm just going to take a wild guess. I'm guessing maybe Immokalee, it might be LaBelle, it might be as far as Arcadia. Is that by design, where maybe when you first started your career, you might have hired kids right out of culinary school and it changed to this? Because I got the feeling like maybe you don't have a lot of CIA grads back there.
I think, I guess it all started years ago when I first started the business. I mean, once you first start a business, there's not a whole lot of capital. Mm-hmm. So my first employee were actually a dishwasher. Okay. And when she was not busy with dishes, she would help me with prep work, mini pastries, make mixes and that type of thing. And as she just became better at doing that, I replaced her as a dishwasher and kept her as a pastry person. Okay. And that's pretty much how I grew my staff in a lot of cases. That a lot of the staff that I had in the earlier days, they were my dishwashers. And then once we got a little bit more capital going, that was when I hired pastry chefs to come and help me and mm-hmm. push me along to a different level, get more business in and things like that.
With right now, is there anybody there that's from Johnson & Wales, CIA? Is there any staff from higher end college?
No, not anymore.
But is that because you kind of learned some things along the way? Like maybe it's better to take someone who's raw and train them into what you want them to be?
Correct. I think in my case and for what we do, I mean, I think I can easily train the staff, uh-huh. And a lot of the people that I train, they get very proud of what they do, mm-hmm. and they take ownership.
More pride in their work.
Yeah, in what they do. And I think once a person has been with me for a few years, then it's like an apprenticeship almost. Gotcha. They become better and better, and they pretty much learn everything because we make everything from scratch. Sure. So they can go through making bread to making croissants. They can learn how to make fondant. They can do cakes, decorate cakes, wedding cakes, sculpture cakes, mm-hmm. and stuff like that. So they can pretty much do whatever they want mm-hmm. with the size of pastry shop that we have. Over the years, of course I do want to have professional people work for me, but I feel that there's not that many in our industry anymore that has the interest of doing what we do. Okay, I didn't know that. Type of thing. And then I think most of the people that come from Johnson & Wales, CIA, that type of thing. I mean, they want to go and become pastry chefs right away.
So maybe they don't have the patience.
They don't have the patience. They want to be independent and work for a club and be their own boss.
Okay.
So, and working for me, they're not their own boss.
So are you saying, like, if you were going to, like, give someone advice about, hey, I want to open a pastry shop, like, if they want to start from scratch, would you kind of discourage that idea of hiring someone who's, like, very, very experienced, where it's maybe better to train?
Well, I mean, I think in my case, it was more the money. I mean, as I said, the capital wasn't there. I needed to pay the bank off and make sure I had money for new equipment and things like that. So so we had to do a lot of the work ourselves and start with lower cost employees, pretty much.
Yeah. I kind of agree with that, with the whole idea. Sometimes when you deal with people that are pretty well trained, and sometimes they come from these colleges, they're kind of like trained to do things one way, and they're not open to change sometimes. And sometimes you're battling their personalities in that way, where, you know, I kind of agree with you. Sometimes it's better to just take someone and train them
correct
the way you want them to be.
I've had most luck with that. And I have employees that's been with me for 18 years, 14 years, 10 years, 12 years.
Yeah.
So a lot of my employees has been with me for a long time.
Wow. I mean, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So let's start like way back, like childhood. What made you want to be a chef, or what was calling you to maybe jump into this? Like, tell me about that a little bit.
Well, my childhood, I grew up in a pastry shop.
Okay.
My parents had a pastry shop.
So there it is.
Back home in Denmark.
Okay.
And as a child, I mean, it wasn't for me.
What age did you? What age are we talking?
Well, we're talking probably like 10, 11 years old.
Wow.
But when I turned 12,
Uh-huh.
that was when my parents told me that I had to start working, and I started cleaning the pastry shop.
Okay.
Every day after school, and that just became my daily chore. Like back home, we had a pastry shop that was like on a main street.
Mm-hmm.
So the shop was downstairs, and then we lived upstairs in like an apartment, a part of the building.
Gotcha.
So everything took place right there. And when I got home from school, I cleaned the pastry shop and did my homework, and then I went to do my sports and stuff like that. And
But I think you were about to say you didn't want to be a pastry chef.
I never had any thoughts about being a pastry chef or a baker or anything like that. But then during my early years, whenever there was summer vacations and stuff like that, then my dad asked if we could come down and help him in the summertime at nighttime, baking and that stuff. And that was kind of pretty fun. And I got a little hooked on working and making the money also.
The money.
You know, as a young kid, it was good to have a little bit of spending money. But then when I kind of got a little older, a teenage kid, there was other things I wanted to do that my parents didn't agree with.
So they kind of forced you into it a little bit?
Yeah, they kind of forced me into it. So the things that I didn't want to do was I wanted to move to a different island and go to a different school. My parents didn't want that, but they said if I wanted to move away, they would get me a job.
Okay.
And help me find an apartment and all of that stuff. So at the age of 15, I moved away from home. Started my apprenticeship in a different town as a baker / pastry chef.
Okay. Was that like kind of considered like a big school, like a famous school, or
no?
Not
It was
really?
a private. This is an apprenticeship, so you sign a contract with another bake shop or bakery.
Okay.
And that contract consists of you having to work for him for 3 years as an apprentice.
Mm-hmm.
And then in that apprenticeship, once you go through first year, then he will have to send you to technical school.
Okay.
So my first year of technical school was 5 weeks, where you go up and they'll give you some education in the technical stuff by books, and then you have some hands-on training. Then after the 5 weeks, you do a test where it will tell them that you are far enough along that you can continue your apprenticeship. So then you go back to your workplace and work for like a year more. Then a year after you're into your second year, and then you go to school for 10 weeks. And after like a year and a half at your apprenticeship, then you pretty much have been around all the different things and you learn most of it. So you should know pretty much everything that's going on in a bake shop, pastry shop type of thing. But after 10 weeks, you'll do another test and they'll let you know whether you can continue.
Okay.
If you're not far along, then you can either do your second year over or your first year over type of thing. Start from scratch again. But I think most people who doesn't pass the first year, they'll find something else to do.
Right. But being locked into that 3-year period.
3-year period.
Did you like being in there with
that? No. I loved every minute of it.
Okay, so it wasn't like, oh God, did I make the wrong choice?
I really fell in love with the pastry industry and all of that stuff. It was not that I made the wrong choice by any means. I've pretty much always enjoyed what I'm doing.
Yeah.
It's never been a chore or a job for me. It's always been a hobby.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
it has. Then third year, of course, you go up and you do your master brief type of thing. You do your test and you graduate.
So from there, where did you go after Denmark? And
I stayed back home in Denmark and worked for the shop that I apprenticed at for like a year.
Okay.
Then after a year, I got the opportunity to come to America.
Mm-hmm.
I got a job with the Ritz-Carlton in Boston.
Nice.
So with them, I got what was called a J1 visa at the time.
Okay.
And that was like an 18 months visa.
Uh-huh.
So I came over here, and my brother was over here, so I did have family over here, and he worked for the Ritz too, so we were kind of together. And I worked there for 1.5 years, and the whole idea of me coming over here and working was for me to come over and see what was going on over here. And
but
then,
did you enjoy that year?
Yeah, I did. I had a good time too. I actually fell in love with America then. I mean, I was very impressed with America. But the whole idea was for me to come back with a bunch of new ideas, stuff that people have never seen in Denmark, type of thing. And
so that's what I was going to ask. What happened with your parents' place if you weren't going to go back and take over that?
Well, they kind of just fell to the wayside and closed down.
That didn't bother you? Like you never had the urge? You just like, I want to be in America.
I want to be in America.
Gotcha.
Well, I met a girl.
It changes everything, doesn't it?
I met a girl, and of course, she's now my wife, and we have been married for 32 years, and we got 3 beautiful kids and all of that stuff. So
that kind of made the decision, hey, we got to get something solid here.
Of me. Well, I think when I'm thinking back, I mean, one of the things that always went through my thoughts were, if I went back to Denmark, it was like my history was written.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that I was going to take over my parents' pastry shop, and
you want to do something,
but everything here in America was something that I created,
over the top kind of.
I never knew what tomorrow was going to bring.
Sure.
Or anything.
So you're saying you kind of crave that pressure.
I think so.
Kind of like doing things.
I like the excitement of not knowing what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of taking the bull by the horn and attacking new opportunities.
Gotcha.
And in the food industry, there's always opportunities knocking on the door.
Absolutely.
So I mean, I was with the Ritz-Carlton for a few years. I had to leave because I lost my working papers. But as soon as I got my working papers back, I went back and became the pastry chef for the Ritz-Carlton.
Okay.
And
for how long did you stay there?
I was there for a few years. Started a family in Boston. Then my second job was at the Four Seasons Hotel in Houston.
Okay.
So we moved to Houston, Texas, and worked for Four Seasons Hotel there.
Uh-huh.
Which was also a good, wonderful job.
Yeah.
And then after a few years in Houston, I got taken away by a headhunter that talked me into start a job with a private restaurant group in Houston. And that wasn't really the best move of my life. I kind of like the hotel kitchens. I like the pastry shop where you had a staff and
Large scale.
the larger scale. A restaurant, I mean, there was not a lot of room to do what you want to do.
Right. Set menu.
There wasn't the help with the staff that you needed
Yeah.
to do the things that you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't have the same freedom, creativity, and things like that when you're working for more like a private boss, like what I am now,
Yeah.
type of thing. So that probably only lasted about a year.
Back then, though, were you ever discouraged by the money, or you never cared about the money? You're just like, I'm happy to be doing what I'm doing.
Well, I always made good money.
So you were always happy with the money
I
back
always
then?
made good money. And,
Okay, good.
And that's kind of, another thing that when you ask about my time here in America, I've never looked for a job.
Good.
They always found me.
Yeah.
There was always people
Mm-hmm.
saying, come on, let's talk,
Yeah.
type of thing.
So a lot of offers on the
A
table.
lot of offers, a lot of opportunities and things like that. And I kind of had a philosophy that I wouldn't stay more than 2 or 3 years in one place
Mm-hmm.
because I want to learn as much as I could
Yeah,
and then move on
I could relate to that.
to a different place.
Yeah.
So I jumped around quite a bit until I felt that I hit the ceiling. I couldn't go any further.
Okay.
And then, then you get older and you have a family, so your chances of moving around gets a little bit smaller.
Right.
You gotta
Think of everybody.
You gotta think of everybody.
Right.
You have to settle down sometime and take care of your family. And that was when in late '90 that we start thinking about opening our own business.
Mm-hmm.
And the opportunity came up in Naples that I took over a closed down pastry shop. A German pastry chef had retired.
So you had worked at a different building, not the one you're in now.
Not the one I'm
There
in
was a
now.
different
I
place.
started out in a different location, yes. In Naples.
And then the one you're in now? So it's
Then
only two buildings in your life?
the building that I started with, we outgrew that probably within 3 years.
What area was that in?
That was down by the Fort Miami dealership,
Okay.
Mercantile, Arnold Avenue,
Yeah,
down by Commercial Glass.
gotcha. Okay.
I was down there in that area. It
All
was
right.
like a little 1,800 square foot kind of, I call it a garage because it looked like a garage.
How did that transition go, like starting up and everything? Did it go real good? Like it just started popping right away? Or did it take time?
It is kind of a funny story. Because I never saw the building. I never saw the equipment
Oh, so there
that
was
I
some
purchased or anything like
growing
that.
pains.
And the guy that I bought it from, he was an old German pastry shop, a nice
Okay.
guy. I mean, we're still friends today.
Yeah.
He still comes and see me and say hi and all of that stuff. But I was in Mississippi at the time, working at a casino. So we were talking over the phone, and I came down one time to see the building,
Yeah.
and the building was empty at the time. So my only concern at that time was that I could continue the lease
Uh-huh.
for a few years.
Okay.
I wouldn't buy a business and not have a lease or anything like that. So the pastry shop guy, Klaus Bandhauer was his name, he talked to the landlord and they assured me that I could have whatever lease I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
So then I had Klaus Bandhauer sent me a list, and in those days, that was in the early days with the fax machine when it came out like on a roll,
Yeah.
piece of paper. So
Okay.
so he sent me like a long roll of paper with how many sheet pans he had, how many tables he had,
Yeah.
cooking pots, and
Okay.
all of that stuff. And on paper, everything looked good.
Till you got there.
So I got there.
No, I've heard a lot of stories about buildings being a big
yeah.
problem.
So I said, okay, we'll make a deal and put everything back. It was all in a consignment shop.
Okay.
So he put everything back, and I came down and saw what I had purchased, and I almost had a heart attack
Really?
because some of the tables was like fold-up tables, kitchen tables.
Just not sufficient. You need like the heavy
Yeah,
duty,
I
strong.
was used to professional stainless steel table with marble tops and all of that stuff. Cooking pots was the aluminum ones from Walmart. You know.
So did you get into the credit card and just start buying a bunch of stuff? How'd you handle that?
When we first made our first loan, we did secure money enough to buy new equipment.
Okay.
So I knew I needed some mixers and stuff like that. So we did have some money. So when I first started my business and money started coming in, I would buy. At that time, I didn't think how big I was going to be.
Yeah.
I always planned it to be like a little mom and pop place, maybe 5 or 6 employees, and do 50 desserts of one kind and 50 desserts of another kind type of thing. So my first goal was to buy, tart shells. So I'll find like a nice tart shell that I would buy, and I would buy 50 of them, thinking that would be enough. I would buy other molds and stuff like that, thinking all of that would be enough. And this was all before I really went into my first season of business.
Yeah.
And when I first started my pastry shop, I did everything. I did everything from bread to breakfast pastries to, anything I could do, the whole 9 yards. Everything was made.
Yeah.
And one of my friends here in town, he said to me that I was crazy. There was no way I could keep up.
Yeah.
With all of that, and I said, "Oh, no worry." Because
I'm going to guess he was right.
He was right, because in my mind, I was only going to do 50-50-50 type of thing of everything. But I didn't realize I was going to have like 10 or 12 country clubs.
Yeah.
Ordering
all at the same time.
Ordering at the same time.
Yep.
And order pastries for 150, 200 people, and that stuff, and that kind of took me by a surprise.
But I think what I'm hearing is, instead of taking the profits or whatever money you made, you put it back into the business.
Correct.
Always,
Correct.
pretty much from the beginning.
We have always done that from the beginning.
Yeah, I think a lot of people make mistakes on that. If they're like first-time restaurateurs trying to do like, hey, I'm going to be like a big restaurant and open a bunch of locations, they spend all their money and they don't realize we're very seasonal down here.
Yeah, very seasonal.
You better save your money for the summer.
We knew that from the beginning, because my wife was part of the opening team at the Ritz-Carlton in Naples in the mid-'80s.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the friends that she had worked with there have since then left the Ritz-Carlton, and they've either become executive chef for country clubs or food and beverage directors or GMs. So we had a pretty good network starting our business in Naples. But as I started in August, and that was another suggestion that was told to me, that I should start a business August, September, be ready to be up and running, and that way you will hit the season right away. You have the first month and a half to work out some of your mistakes or figure out what you need and type of thing. But then by Thanksgiving, the business is up and running.
Yeah.
Season is here.
Yeah.
And in season, this is like a light switch that goes on.
Yeah.
And once it's on, the light switch disappears.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there's no way of turning the lights off.
Right.
Before end of May type of thing. So that every year, it was like that. But every year we grew. So my first year of business, I probably grew more than 100%.
Was there any consideration about, hey, we're going into summertime where it's slow, why don't we shut down 2-3 months? And like, would that have been worth it, or always stay open was always the key? Well,
I felt that I target the market of the service industry, such as country clubs, hotels, and stuff like that, and they don't shut down.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt that I couldn't shut down either.
So it was always worth it to just keep going and going.
Yeah. And the first 7 years of being in business, we didn't take any days off. We didn't take any vacations or anything like that. Then after 6 or 7 years, then we start closing on Sundays, and that's been a closing day ever since. And as my staff grew and we became stronger and a better team, summertime was always slower. I always hated the summertime because we were always upside down
Yeah.
because of our bill. I mean, your bills, they don't go away in the summer. They don't go away in the summertime.
Right.
And once you have a payroll, that doesn't go away. It goes back a little bit.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Another challenge you probably suffer from is you got so many staff. You
Yeah.
can't really lay them all off in
No,
the summer.
I
You got an obligation to give them some kind of pay.
I only hire
keep them busy.
I only hire full-time people, and I keep them as full-time people.
Wow,
And
that's good for you. That's what I'm saying. I respect what you're doing over
we
there.
work it out, and it seems like throughout the years it's been like a circle. You know, it always comes back, and even with the roughest summer times, you know, when season started right back up again, it was, you know, we were back on top again within a few months.
Yeah.
So it's never really been an issue, and I mean, I live a pretty comfortable life, so I don't ask for too much, but the business is running, and we still put money into the business.
Sure.
But once I moved out, I always knew I wanted to own my own building.
Right. Which you do now.
Which I do now.
So tell me about going into that building. What complaints or issues did you have going into the bigger building?
Well, the issue that I had with my first building was the power.
Yeah.
For equipment. It was an older building, so I think it only had about 220 watts coming in.
So you're blowing
fuses all the time. Yeah. Because once you have oven going, a stove going, coolers, you have an AC.
Yeah, I sometimes have those problems.
All of that stuff, then, you know, you were just popping
breakers
stuff right away.
Yeah.
But luckily, next to me, there was a German bakery who had put in plenty of power.
Okay.
So he had his own power panel, but he had left his old panel empty, so I was able to hook up to that one and take his 220. So then I got 440 watts, which helped me for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
But it was still the way that my business grew. It was still not enough, and I pretty soon I grew the place that I was in. So I knew that the bakery next to me was in trouble and were going to close down. And the business in front, there were 3 businesses in there, and they were not doing too well.
Right.
So I contacted the landlord because I wanted to take over the whole building.
Right.
And change things around my way. So he didn't want to sell to me.
Oh.
So
So does that mean you lease?
I rented at that time.
Okay, you rented.
But then I started contacting other people, looked for some other real estate.
Mm-hmm.
And it took about good 6-8 months. Then I talked to a guy that used to have Ice Magic.
Oh yeah, I remember that company.
David.
Yeah,
and he had an idea in the neighborhood that I'm in now.
Mm-hmm.
That there was a developer that was going to build the building that I'm in now.
Mm-hmm.
It was not even built or anything like that, but he wanted to make that into like a wedding venue.
Oh.
So his vision was to have like a cake maker, a florist, rental place,
The ice.
a chef place,
Yeah,
an ice place,
Yeah.
and then we were going to use the whole upstairs as a like a ballroom, function room type of thing. So
Wow.
everything could be done in house.
That'd be cool.
And stuff like that. So I was glad, I wanted to be part of that. So I talked to the developer, and I said I needed 2 units. It's a total of 6 units. So I probably took a little bit more space at that time than I really needed. But I took 2 units, and then I was waiting for David and other people to take the other units, which then never took place because David was not able to sell his buildings to put the finances into new opportunities. So it kind of just fell flat.
Gotcha.
But I still had my commitment,
Yeah.
which I was very happy about. It was very good to be part of something from the ground up because I was able to put in 3-phase power.
Mm-hmm.
Once the roof line was up and all of that stuff, I could go out, and with all the equipment that I had, I could, draw out on the floor where everything was going to go. With the connection that we have built up, like now in Naples, and you also been working for country clubs, that they go through renovations every so many years. So over the first few years of my business, I was able to buy walk-in coolers, bigger equipment from country clubs that was doing renovations.
Right. Oh, that's smart.
So
get it at a discount.
Get it at a discounted price.
Absolutely.
Or even sometimes at a trade type of thing. Because I knew my biggest worry being in my first location was I only had one oven, I only had one mixer, I only had one cooler, I only had one freezer. And I was always afraid that if anything broke down, that the chain will break and I couldn't service the people that I have made or committed myself to make pastries. So my next goal was to get into a location where I could have 2 or 3 of everything. And if anything breaks,
you got a backup.
It wouldn't ruin anything or slow us down.
Right.
We could still continue whatever production we have to make.
Smart.
So that was kind of how I grew the business. I also been very lucky and blessed because there was when I first started my shop here, there was up in Fort Myers, there was Andre's Bakery.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember him.
It sounds familiar.
Andre, he was probably the one who had most of Fort Myers and Naples, all the country clubs for bread and pastries. He had a pastry chef working for him, Todd Johnson. Also a Ritz-Carlton pastry chef.
Yeah.
So they had most of the market, and that was fine. I mean, I had my connection, and for the space that I had, I mean, I had enough business for what I was doing. But then Andre wanted to retire and sell his business, and that the new owners didn't include Todd Johnson as being part of their transaction. So he knew that his job was done. So he actually called all his friends and customers, the people that I was friends with Todd, so I promised him I would not go after or vice versa. He wouldn't touch my customers or anything like that.
Right.
But then he called me up and says, "Paul, do you want to grow your business? I'm moving to the Bahamas."
Whoa! So you got lucky with that little score.
Yeah. So I said, "Sure." So
Jeez.
I pretty much picked up all of Andre's country clubs for doing pastries.
But when something like that lands on your lap, isn't there a little bit of like, oh boy, can I handle all this? Isn't it kind of scary? Does it worry you at any? Like, I think I'd be a little worried. Be like,
not really.
Can I really do all this?
The only thing I'm worried about is how much my staff can do.
Yeah.
Because as long as you have the people and you have the people with the right work ethic, you can do a lot. And I only take on as much business as my staff can handle.
Yeah.
Because if I lose 2 or 3 of my staff members, or in those days, it was a bigger percentage if 2 or 3 people will walk out or anything like that. So it was a little bit more scarier back then. But now when I have 35 employees, there's always extra hands who can help you out,
right?
Type of thing. But no, we took it as it came, and we were right in. It was right when I had moved into my first business or my second business. We increased the space and all of that stuff, so it was all good. And at that time, I did have a friend of mine who was a pastry chef. He was with me.
Oh, that's good.
All of that stuff. So
well, it sounds like it was a pretty smooth run.
It was a pretty smooth run.
But what about like right now, when you kind of look from year to year, are you like a big person that looks at analytics from year? Because that's what I was going to assume, that you kind of feel so steady. There's really no reason to compare year to year.
No,
you don't really do that?
No, I don't. No. I mean, the only thing that I use analytics for is when we go into holidays and I have to pre-prep.
Oh, yeah. You got to kind of look at last
year's. Yeah. So because for holidays, I have to start a few weeks out. And that's even before the orders start coming in.
Yeah.
So I look at last year's numbers, what we did, and what was the high production items, and that's when I will start producing those items, and then I wait for the orders to come in.
Gotcha.
So that's the only time.
And then with the operation right now, how much would you say you're actually in there doing the actual hands-on producing? Or do you kind of step away where you're more of a boss, manager?
I can't, well...
Or are you actually dealing with the flour and butter?
Not too much anymore.
Gotcha.
I really don't want to. I mean, I think my staff can handle it as long as they can handle it. I mean, if they want me to, I can step in anywhere.
Right.
And do the job. But,
when did that change? What year did you start stepping
probably
back?
like a few years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. But everything, I mean, other than that, I was hands-on all along.
Yeah.
I did production day. But I think I still work.
Obviously.
Because once you do the amount of business that we do, because I take care, I do all the ordering of food.
Yeah. You're kind of managing.
I make the schedule. Then with having the delivering service from Fort Myers to Marco Island and all of that stuff, I got to make sure that whenever we go to Fort Myers, that I have all the tickets ready. So everybody needs to get 3 or 4 tickets in the morning.
Yeah.
And then I can send my first driver out. And then we start doing the other way up, because a lot of times when I do my deliveries, I try to go to Marco Island first or Fort Myers first, and then work my way into Naples, and then Naples will be done.
Yeah.
The last.
Well, speaking of work, I was always curious to ask you, this might sound like a strange question, but I have to know, what kind of hours do you keep? And what I mean, let me guess at this first. I'm going to guess you probably go to bed around 8:30 at night, and you're up maybe around 5:30 in the morning.
I wake up at 5, but I don't go to work.
See, I was pretty close.
I wake up around 5:30, 6 o'clock. But, I mean... I think this year, I guess it started pretty much after COVID type of thing. COVID changed a lot of things.
Absolutely.
So now I don't start my business. I mean, I don't open the door at the shop before 7 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, but what time do you arrive there usually?
I arrive 7.
Oh, okay. But I've called a lot of times. And you're there at
sometimes
6?
Well, when I'm busy, I'm a little bit early. Now we're not that busy, so now it's 7 o'clock. But in season, I might be there around 6:30.
I'll tell you a true story. I called one time, I think it was like midnight, the day before. I knew he wasn't going to answer. I'm just leaving a message on his machine about tomorrow's delivery. He answers the phone, and I'm like, what are you doing, Chef? It's midnight.
It was up to a holiday, probably.
I think it was around Christmas.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, and I was like, what the heck kind of hours is this guy living?
Yeah.
But okay, so if you're going to be busy and you're going to be working, showing up at 6 or whatever, what time do you normally go to bed these days or whatever, when you're busy?
I go to bed around 10, 11 o'clock.
Okay, see, I assumed really early. No, most bakers go to bed early.
We have kind of the shop is set up that we do all the prep for next day.
Yeah.
So we come in the morning, and then we finish everything up. So everything is already done.
Yeah.
So it's not like we have to start early and have to scoop the muffins and and make all of that stuff is already done.
Yeah.
So when we come in the morning, I'll take out the croissants and the danishes, and we'll put them in the proof box and bake that off. And the way that I have worked with my customers is that none of them wants breakfast pastries at 6, 7 in the morning. The way that we do it for them is they'll get an afternoon delivery for next morning. So I never have to be in early or anything like that. But I have done some long work days, and my staff has always been with me. I have a very good staff. So as I said, for holidays, in the beginning of the business could be 20-hour work days.
Yeah.
But now I'm getting older. I can't do that anymore.
Sure.
So I think our schedule has definitely changed, and I have increased the staff so much that we don't have to work those hours anymore. So now a good work day is most of the time in season is 14 hours.
Damn. Yeah, I mean, sometimes I pull days like that.
Yeah.
But let me ask you, with your position and what you're doing, when was actually the last time you had to fire somebody? And what did they do wrong to get fired?
I've never fired anybody.
Get out of here. You're lying.
No.
Somebody who just keeps coming in late, doesn't show. You've never had those issues?
Well, you have your ways. So I
deal with it. You're a pushover is what I'm hearing.
No. I mean, you would change the schedule.
Make that guy show up at noon?
Yeah, no, you just change the schedule to times that they can't work, and you cut the hours. So they eventually quit.
Okay.
You turn
you do a reverse
you
thing.
turn it around on them.
Gotcha.
And
I thought you were trying to make it convenient make this guy get up at 11 now. He can't get up early. What about when have you been in like a situation where you really had to scold an employee for ruining, like let's say 100 pastries for something that's about to go out in a few hours? How many times do you really have to crack the whip on somebody ruining stuff?
Well, there's different way of I learned a lesson years ago because when I first came to the States, that was in '87. A lot of the hotel business, they were used to the old French chefs.
Throwing pots and pans?
Yeah, yelling and screaming and all of that stuff. And within the Ritz-Carlton company in those days, they had a new philosophy. Mm-hmm. And the new philosophy was kind of, as a manager, you have to listen to your employees. They're the one doing the job type of thing. So it's better to pay attention to see what they need, what went wrong, and listen to them. And I think that was always a good learning experience to take care of your employees, find out what they need. And if in my business, because I'm there all the time, mm-hmm. a lot of those mistakes doesn't really happen that often.
But when it does, do you freak out? How do you handle it?
Well, we get it done. I think a lot of times if something happened, it's either we lose an order.
Do you remember when I ordered about 2 cheesecakes and you didn't get them right both times? Do you remember that?
I think so, yeah.
They both. You're like, I show up. I'm like, Chef, where's my cheesecake? Yeah. You're like, it collapsed. I'm like, okay, so what are we gonna do? You're gonna send me back there and say, sorry guys, no cheesecake tonight.
No, we figured it out.
Do you kind of remember that?
But we figured it out though, right?
Yeah, we did. It took a little.
It took a little work.
Couple visits. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but I don't really scold my employees. I have a rule that, everybody is allowed to make a mistake once.
Yeah.
Then we go over and we talk about it. What they did wrong.
But do you have a clutch employee that this is an important job? I got to give it to this person.
We do. We do have
some higher level that things will get done right.
But as I said, with the level that I'm on now and the employees that I have, every time I need a new employee, I always put the word out to my employees that we need a new guy or we need a new person, and they find somebody. Mm-hmm. And they train them too. Okay. So, I just step back and I'll make sure they have what they need, mm-hmm. Type of thing. But I've really never scolded. I do get mad sometimes. If they're, of course, I think for me, what hurts the most if something is lost, it's the money.
Yeah.
Because in food industry, the margin of making a profit is very little.
Yeah.
So
and COVID even made it more difficult.
So if something gets burned, forgot in the oven or whatever, become a product that is not fixable, mm-hmm. then I look at it. It's a lost product, but it's not only the product, it's the rework, it's the labor, going into it.
Right.
And it just starts a whole domino effect. So you cannot just look at it, one recipe cost me $50.
Yeah.
That's not the cost
of
what you just lost. You lost, a few hours of work.
Yeah.
And plus you have to make another recipe and all of that stuff.
All right, Chef, I just wanted to get into one big elephant in the room. Let's talk about COVID. If I can recall, I think it was about 2020, right around March when it hit me. What happened was I started getting influx of calls, everybody canceling. There was lots of trips that were in the books. a lot of people that were coming down. They were gonna, have all these big events, maybe weddings and things.
It happened.
And then
It happened
COVID hit.
St. Patrick's Day.
Yep.
2020.
Yep. So tell me a little about how you dealt with that immediately. Like what changed? Just same as me, probably everybody canceling all the events.
Correct. Well, everything got canceled, but I think all the people that I did customers with had already put in the order, and they were kind enough to say, we'll take it, because I think they knew something else was going to happen, and they were right that, they had to do to-go orders and stuff like that. So most of the stuff that they purchased from me could be used for the to-go orders in the beginning. But, it was a scary thing.
Did employees not want to work during that period?
No, most of my employees are all people who need to work.
Okay.
And that was the toughest thing, because my wife and I was having argument, because I said, let's shut it down. I said, I'm done. We'll shut it down.
Just for a temporary, see what happens.
I would shut it down until the summer, because I knew it was going to last a few months.
And then her argument is we can't do that. We can't do
that to our employees. Our employees have been with us for so long, and we owe them that we keep on fighting.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
So we did, and we luckily, a lot of the people that I have working for me, some of the people who work in the retail shop, some of the people who are my drivers, some of my office girls, they were the first one coming to us and saying, listen, your staff needs to work. We don't need to work. We'll stay home. Don't worry about us. We'll be fine. So off the bat, I lost a good percentage of my payroll.
Gotcha.
That helped me. Then I started calling country clubs, chefs, hoping I could be part of the to-go business.
Yeah.
And stuff like that, and see how I could, work my way in to the new business.
Yeah, trying to survive.
To go. And we were, in some cases we were very lucky and got part of it. There was one particular chef in town, Sergey. He's now out at Heritage Bay. At that time he was at Mornings Park. But he said right away, I'm going to give my business to the small guy. I don't need to be buying from Cisco. I don't need to be buying from Cheney or anything like that.
Yeah.
Mikkelsen's
That's great.
They're going to get all my business. So he gave me all his business. So I did have a few clubs, and luckily I had retirement homes that I do business with. So that business kept going. But then, everything kind of just fell in place. Let's say, for instance, Cisco. They had a lot of product that they needed to push out. So in the beginning of COVID, they did what they called a penny sale.
Okay.
Because it will cost them money to throw everything out. But you're talking about fresh squeezed orange juice, fresh squeezed lemon juice, mashed potatoes, lettuce, celery. There was a whole bunch of stuff that you could buy for a penny a case.
Wow.
So my salesperson for Cisco at that time was Jennifer, and she came to me and said, "Paw, this is a good deal for you. It doesn't cost you anything." And the whole idea was I bought everything I could, and I would take care of my employees.
Oh, that was great. Wow.
And it only cost me pennies.
Yeah.
So I bought mashed potatoes. We bought, and every day we packed up food boxes, whatever they needed. I already have eggs at the shop, but my employees were able to take food boxes home for the family.
That's
as
great.
long as I had that product. And then after that, it got cut back. Then we had bacon, we had eggs. I could take care of some items for them, but in the beginning, we did try to take care of our employees as well as we could, because of the less hours they worked. Of course, I couldn't give them full-time jobs, but I could give them work. We started cleaning up and all of that stuff. Churches started to go boxes too, so I donated most of my product in my freezer to churches to use up for to-go boxes, and then slowly as people, luckily we are in Florida.
Yeah.
Because
and we were allowed to stay open.
We were allowed to stay open and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
we were fortunate.
We were very fortunate to be here in this state, for sure. So as time went on, my wife came up with an idea of creating a farmer's market. So we contacted Farmer Mike in Bonita to see if they wanted to be part of this. And that was right when they started the PPP.
Yeah.
So we started a PPP farmers market. There was pastries, produce, pizza, anything with a P. People will come out, type of thing. So we started a farmers market every Wednesday in our parking lot.
It's creative,
and that brought a lot of customers in.
But during that period, did you ever have a scary time where employees started showing up with COVID and spreading it within the workplace? Did you have anything like that happen?
It happened one time. I mean, as I said, now COVID happened in March, with St. Patrick's Day. So the season was almost over anyway. We had gone through season, and luckily, that the season was coming to an end. But then in the summertime, nobody could travel anymore, and most of the time in the summertime I'd travel overseas or do something different. So instead of traveling overseas, we traveled in the States. But then there was one time we were on vacation, and I think I had 2 people that got COVID.
So did they stop going to work?
We shut down the pastry shop.
Oh, okay. That's how you handled it. Okay.
I was out of town, and
I guess that's a smart decision because they're around other employees.
Correct.
And then you don't know.
We didn't know. They were freaking out and all of that stuff. So we decided to shut it down. So I told the people, finish up whatever we had pre-ordered. There was a few people who felt comfortable doing that.
Yeah.
So we just filled our orders, and then we shut down the pastry shop for 2 weeks. The retail shop.
Yeah.
That is. I had people to go get checked. Whoever was negative could come back and take care of my wholesale business. And that was so. I came back from vacation, and we did wholesale for a while. But also while I was closed down, I had a company come in and sanitize and do everything.
Oh, that's a good move too.
I bought the UV lights and all of that stuff.
Wow,
so
you
I
went
can
wild.
move, I can move around.
I remember you had the rubber glove and sanitizer sale.
Well,
Right at the front.
No, but that was another thing because during the COVID, I mean, you had all the people that couldn't find toilet paper.
Oh, yeah.
And all of that stuff, and I could buy it by the case.
Oh, I know. Yeah, because
so why not put it in the shop?
Right.
And that was what we did. So.
See, for my thing it was similar to you where everybody's canceling, but then the locals that knew me, that I've worked for pretty regularly, they're like, hey, if you don't have a fever and you can still smell and taste, come on over here and be our chef.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Because, some of these people, they're not going to eat, to-go box food. They're just not going to.
No.
If they can have me come out, they're going to pick me over to-go food.
Sure, yeah.
So luckily for me, you follow me on social media, so you could see this COVID thing pushed me into a whole nother level.
It did, yeah.
Where I could work almost every single day.
That was another thing I wanted to get into is, our retail shop. People who couldn't go to the country clubs anymore, they would find and come to my shop instead of. So since COVID, our retail shop have increased tremendously.
Yeah.
So
let me ask you this: like, if you weren't doing what you're doing now, what would have been something maybe? Did you regret taking another role in life, or you're extremely happy with your role of what you did? Is there something like, if I wasn't doing this, I'd rather be doing this? Do you have another interest that maybe you sometimes think about?
No, not
as far as
I said, I think that my pastry field, as I said, has always been my hobby. But as I said, now I'm getting older. Of course, now I'm thinking of, I cannot keep up this pace anymore because I think...
that was going to be my next question. What is a future goal going forward? Do you have goals with your... Because I'm thinking you're just going to make a few million selling your business and right off into the sunset.
I want to work less. No, I want to work less and stuff like that. So, I have to cut back business and all of that stuff. Things that I never really have concentrated on here in Naples, which I have an opportunity now, is maybe to do more retail. Mm-hmm. Then, as I said, with all the changes that happened since COVID, with everything that's going on right now, with finding the right products and all of that stuff, I think it might be a wiser move to go into retail where I can put out whatever I want. Yeah. Instead of having some customer dictate to me what they want. Sure. And then me having to look to find that product and all of that stuff. So I think, we do have more headaches now finding products, packaging materials, and all of that stuff.
But let me ask you this. Are you open to, like, let's say a young hot shot, maybe he's about 28 years old and says, Chef, I want to buy your business.
Bring him by.
Really? Yeah. So that's where you're at right now. If somebody had wanted to buy the business.
That's kind of why my thought, because I think anybody, like if you're taking like a young kid like that, if they come in and see our operation in season, they'll get scared away.
It's a lot.
They'll get scared away. So my goal is actually to cut back to a point where a young kid can come in and say,
because that's what it's going to take.
Can come in and see, he's just doing retail and a little bit of wholesale. Yeah. And I can do that. And then it's up to that kid to build up the business the way he wants.
Exactly. See, if I was that person that wanted to take over your business, I would highly advise just go in, work under the chef for about a month during a busy season, just 1 month, see what it's all about, and decide if this is really what you want to do and this is the business you want to buy, because unfortunately this restaurant stuff, it's for young people.
It is for young people.
And it's like, you got to have a lot of energy. You got to take care of your health. I mean, that was probably one of the biggest things I learned during COVID is like your health is number one. If you're not a healthy person and you don't have your health, then where are you? What are you going to do? So it's like, so anybody who's thinking about buying this kind of business that he has, I mean, it's going to take a lot of energy and a lot of willpower, and you got to have that no quit in you. So, well, Chef, I don't want to take any more of your time. I mean, I know you have a busy business to run, and I appreciate your time, and thanks for coming out. My client here was so great for letting us use his residence here to film, and I think everything turned out great.
I think so too. Yeah, no, I enjoyed it.
I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Dave.
All right, you have a good night.